Okay, we were in the middle of discussing the Shibud of Mitzrayim and the beginning of the Geula, and we went ahead and we mentioned about Miriam and her lineage, that she had Zocha to come from her were kings, Malachim, and Nevi'im. And we just touched upon who she was, and we're going to go into it, delve into a little more. Let's start on Yud Aleph on the base. Yud Aleph on the base. By 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go start by 7 lines up. By Kiyiru Hamiyaldos Es Elikim, they fear Hashem. By Yaslem Batim, Rabbi Shmuel Chad Amar, Bate Kahuna Levia, Chad Amar Bate Malchus. Mandim Bate Kahuna Levia, Aaron and Moshe. It came from Yocheved. Mandim Bate Malchus. David Nami Miriam. David came from Miriam. Dichsev Thomas Azuva. Azuva died, and we're going to see that Azuva was Miriam. Vayikach leKalev es Ephrat, Vatedaloi es Chor. And we're going to see that Azuva and Ephrat were basically the same person, and Chor was the son. Chor, of course, was killed by the Cheda Egel. He tried to stop them. He was also known as one of the people who held up Moshe's hands b'shas Milchama against Amalek. And this was Miriam's son. This was his nephew. This is Moshe's nephew. So he said Miriam was Ephras and David was Isha Frasi, so David descended from Miriam. The Kalev ben Chetzrein Hoileres Azuva. And so the pasuk says, this is the pasuk, we're going to dash in these pasukim very, very carefully. So it's good to know each word of the pasuk. Okay? It says, but the Kalev ben Chetzrein Hoileres Azuva Isha ve'es Yuriyos ve'ela boneha Yesher v'shoiva ve'ardoin. Now, what does that mean? The Kalev ben Chetzrein. Let's get from the beginning of the pasuk. If I would tell you Kanev, you'd say Kalev ben Yefuna. You wouldn't say Chetzrein. You'd say right away Kalev ben Yefuna. Bechetzrein ben Yefunahu. His name was Yefuna. What do you mean Chetzrein? So it says the Gemara Ben Shepona me'atzas miraglim. It's really his name was his father's name was Chetzrein, but he was called Yefuna because he turned away from the Eitzes. Yefuna means Pona, to be turned away. He turned away from the Eitzes Amiraglim. Vakadi ben Kenazu, right? Kalev was not the son of Chetzrein. He was Kalev, was ben Kenaz. How do you know he's ben Kenaz? Yichsiv, Vayilkida, and Asniel ben Kenaz. And Asniel ben Kenaz captured Achi Kalev. He was the brother of Kalev. The Gemara in Tamura tells us that he had Seifa, he had a cat, he needed schusim to carry, and he restored the forgotten halachas. But the bottom line is a little ditty of information along the way that Asniel and Kalev were brothers, and Asniel is ben Kenaz. So how can you tell me that Kalev was ben Chetzrein if it was ben Kenaz? Ben Yefuna, you could explain that he turned away from the Eitzes Meraglim. Well, what's about if he's Chetzrein? How can it be called ben Chetzrein and ben Kenaz? And where it still stays the same? No, he was in fact the son of Chetzrein. However, the Kenaz have. He was the stepson of Kenaz. Kalev and Asniel, they had the same maternal, they had the same mother, they have different fathers. Kalev was the stepson of Kenaz, but his real father was Chetzrein. Okay, they can nami to say that what that he was. It says Haknizi, that he wasn't the son of Kenaz. He calls him the Kenizi. When it says the Kenizi and then say Ben Kenaz, Shmami, no, it really wasn't his father. He just was called Haknizi. He was the stepson. Now the pasuk gets said again. What the pasuk gets said, the Kalev ben Chetzrein hoiled es Azuva Isha ve'es Yiriyos, the Ela and the Benecha Yesha v'shoiva ve'ardoin. How do we do with that pasuk? Azuva is Miriam. Azuva was Miriam. Azuva. Why was she called Azuva? Shehakol azvua mischilasa. Initially, everybody stayed away from her. Look at sadness, guys. Talk about a shidduch crisis. This is Miriam Anavia. Take a look at this second Rashi from the top. Azuva shehakol azvua. Second line. Shemetchila chaylanas haisa. Initially, she was sick. They called the Urias, as we're going to see, like an undyed curtain. Well, come on, Karile Nami, Chala'a, and they call her Chala'a or Chela, sick. The Azuva, Shazua called Bachur Yisrael, Milisaisa. They didn't want to marry her because she was ugly. She was commonly. They didn't want to marry Miriam. She was called Azuva. Back in the Gemara, she called Azuva Miskilasa. Hoylid, it says Hoylid as what? That Kalev Hoyleres Azuva. What do you mean he gave birth to Azuva? It was his wife. Right? The Gemara Bahaloi Minsav Habi Nasav Lo. He was married to her. How could you say that what? He was what? He was he birthed her, that he was a father. Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Anoisa Isha L'Shem Shemayim, Maila of a Kosev Kilu Yoda. Anyone who marries a woman Shem Shemayim, it's as if what? He gave birth to her, gave her life. Let's see Rashi, guys. L'Shem Shemayim, Kigain Zu, Shahoisa Chayla, and in other words, she was sick. V'nisu L'Shem Shemayim, and he married her L'Shem Shemayim. Shebadik be'achiha, that Kalev checked out her brothers, Aaron and Moshe, V'roi some tzaddikim, and she saw tzaddikim, V'roi v'banim doimel achiyaim, my sons will go after what? Will go after the paternal brother, the maternal brother, the brother of the mother. Most children will go after them. The Bavasa b'yesh leichlen, and Bavasa b'yesh leichlen. That is the Chazal say Bas Techila Sibin Yafal Lebanim. It says Bas Techila Sibin Yafal Lebanim. So I'll share with you a shot from my friend Hillel Ruvel. He's a very brilliant guy. It says that why is Bas Techila Sibin Yafal Lebanim? Why, if your first child is a girl, is it a Simin Yafa for the sons to come afterwards? It says that we know that Roiv Bonim Holchem Achrei Achiyaim, as we just Rashi quoted. So the girl knows when it comes to Shidduchim, who are they going to look at? At her brothers. So she is going to do her best to ensure that her brothers are what? Are really good. So Bas Tchila, Simin Yafal Lebanim. It's a simin that the boys are going to be well taken care of, because the girl has what to gain. Because when it comes to Shidduchim, they're going to be looking what? At her brothers. That was Hillel's Pshat. The Ben Yoyada says over here, he says that Pshat and Bas Tchila Simin Yafal Lebanim is since this person, when he goes ahead and he marries a woman L'Shem Shemayim Kilu Yolda, it's like he gave birth to her, right? So you were marrying some L'Shem Shemayim, only L'Shem Shemayim, not for any other reason. And it's like you gave birth to her. So Memela the Zivik, the bonim that come will be tzaddikim. The bonim that come from such a Kilu Yolda, if Kilu Yolda that you did the L'Shem Shemayim Kilu Yolda, anyone that really you do give birth to will be tzaddikim. That's the way the Ben Yoda learns this pshat in this Gemara, that a person, when it comes to shidduchim, if you do the Shem Shemayim. Continues it says Yeriyos, again, one of they compare to Yeriyos. She was pale. Her skin was like Yeriyos, with curtains that were undyed. And the pasuk said, who are her sons? Were Yesha, Shoivav, and Ardaim. Atikri Beneha, don't say her sons, Ela Beineha, rather her builders. In other words, these words of Yesha, Shoivav, and Ardaim are not really children. They're all referring to Kalev. And Kalev built her by marrying her. So again, this only Torah Shabbat Peh can dash from this pasuk. Again, you look at the pasuk literally, and Kalev was the father of Azuva, and Azuva was the father of these mother of these kids. It doesn't mean that at all. It means he was married to Azuva, who was Miriam, and the fact that Azuva was the same Shemayim, and these Yesher, Shoivav, and Ardain, as we're going to see, are all speaking about Kalev. Yesher, why was Kalev called Yesher? Sheyisher Esatzmai, because he was Yasher himself when he was straight when he came to that Meraglim. Shoivav, Sheshive Ves he went ahead and he didn't listen to his Yetzirah. And therefore, he rebelled against the Meraglim. Again, it must have been tremendous peer pressure there. Must have been, because again, the Torah considers it very, very powerful. We know if the Torah is praising it so much, the Torah Shabbat Peh is praising it so much, and it's very, very, it's an unbelievable thing. And the Torah says that Kalev was, he quieted the people when Moshe began to talk. He thought they thought he was going to speak against Moshe negatively, and Rabbi, he said the opposite. The Ardain, what does Ardain mean? Sherodes Yitzray, because Rada is the lashon of like a policeman. He was in control of his Yetzirah. The army others say Vardaim does not refer to Kalev, refers to Miriam. Al Shahaya Panecha Daimim Levered. When Kalev married her, she changed her complexion, changed from Yeriyos, from undyed wool to what? To Vered, to a rose. Ula Ashchur Avi Tukoya Hoyashtei Nashim. And in Dibra Yom it speaks about Kalev and Miriam. It says Ashra, the father of Tekoya, had two wives. Who were the two wives? Chela v'Naira. Okay, Rashi had brought this Chela earlier. I said Chela. Ashra is their Kalev. Ashra refers to Kalev, and therefore the two wives must be Miriam, or one of them must be Miriam. As we're going to see, they're both Miriam. Ashkur is a kolev. V'lama nikra shmoi Ashkur is shehushchroi panav b'taniyos, because his face became black. Lashon shachar, his face became black from fasting so much. Avi, why was he called Avi? Shnasalok of, he was like a father, because like a father to Miriam by taking care of what of her needs. She was so sickly. To Kaya, Shetokas Liba Love Shemayim, but by marrying Miriam or by staying away from the Meraglim, he was Takea. He set his slave to Shemayim. By Shtei Noshim, he had two wives. Who were the two wives? Nas and Miriam Kishtei Noshim. It was Miriam who was like two different wives. Chela and Ira, but they're different. Chela, like Chela and Ira have, right? Chela, first she was sickly, a little bit slave Naira, and then when she was then she changed, she became a Naira. Ubnei Chela Tseres v'Tsoyar v'Esnon. Again, speaking about that, the same pasuk in Divrei, another pasuk in Divrei Yomim. And who are the sons of Chela? They were Tseres, Tsoyar v'Esnon. Again, these are all speaking about Miriam herself when she came back to be healthy. Tseres shenasis sorel chaverasa. She became so beautiful. She became a tzara to people, to any peer. Sayar shoya pnei daimim kitzarayim shom, right, like the afternoon. And Esnan shekol roya some malach Esnan lishtay. Anyone who would go ahead and would see her would bring an Esnan to his wife. Okay, speaking about again the differences between Miriam, the Shem Shemayim. She went from being a Zuba to being Ephrat to being beautiful, being a Naira. Okay, getting back to after the digression, getting back to Paro. Paro went ahead and he said, you should go ahead and throw everyone in the river. It extended even to his own people. He was so nervous about getting a Mashiach of Yisrael to kill him, it extended to killing even the Egyptian boys. He was Gazer on his own people to go ahead, they should be killed as well. Right? He was even Gazer on those people that they should go ahead and be killed as well. Reb Chanina, Shalish Gezeres Gaza. Paro made 3 Gezeres. Betchila in the beginning, in Ben Hu Vahamitan Isai. First, kill him. Nothing about the river. He wanted the Riyos, the Miyaldes to kill them. We saw yesterday. And after he said, everyone, not only midwives, they should go ahead, throw them in the river. Initially, the first 2 were only on the Jewish people. The last one was on the Egyptians as well. And it says Anish went from Beis Levi, and he took a door of Levi. That's Amram, who went back and took his wife Yocheved. Where did he go to? Rabbi Yehuda bar Zvina shehalach be'atzas. So he went back according to what the advice of his daughter Miriam. All this is brought by Rashi on Torah. Rashi gets it in this Gemara, a very famous Rashi. Hana Amram Gadol Hadar. Amram was the Gadol Hadar. Amram, the Gemara in Shabbos says, was one of 4 people who never did an Avera. I got a kash on that. He married his niece. A man is not allowed to marry his niece. We did Yavamis, right? An uncle can marry a niece. Excuse me. 1 second. Amram was, that's not a problem. So he married his aunt, right? It wasn't his niece. She was his aunt. Yocheved was Amram's aunt, right? You can't marry your aunt, and the aunt can't marry a nephew. I'm sorry, that's right. So therefore, it's before Matan Torah. I know, still, it's before Matan Torah is the easiest way out. But you figure a guy who never did an Avera will be squeaky clean. Okay, who are the others? There's 4. There's 3 that everybody gets, and there's 1 that no one gets. Baruch's going to get it because I said this so many times. Okay, let's go. Amram was 1. Binyamin was 2. Yishai was 3. And number 4. You forgot? I'll give you a hint. His real name was Daniel, but he looked exactly like David. Kilov, Kuloi Of. He looked exactly like his father. People think it's Kalev, but it's Kuloi Of. This was the child born to David and Abigail. David married Abigail, and he didn't wait 3 months for Havchana. Usually, remember, guys, in Yavamis, you have to wait 3 months before a woman could remarry. So he made him, who's the father of the child. He didn't wait 3 months. So people said she was Misaber from Novo. And his name was Daniel, because she called it the Nani Kel. Hashem judged me. Abigail was a tzaddikus and got me away from this lousy husband. But he looked exactly like David. That people should know it was David's child. So Kulayov, kill off Kulayov. Okay, just a little jeopardy for a Moed morning. Anyway, it says the Gemara. So he went and he went back. What happened? Amram said the following: Kimun shira Paro Russia, right? Kol ben hayilud hayor tashlichu. Who go ahead and you should throw every child into the river. So he said, why? Adam said, why we bother having children? Why? So you know what did he do? When he divorced his wife. Since he was the God Ladar, everyone followed suit. They divorced their wives. He said, Miriam to Amram, Abba. Your gezer is even more detrimental than Paro's. Paro only was goes on the males. Got to gazarta ala sparmal the kabis. Paro goes ela boilam hazeh. Got to boilam hazeh olam haba. Paro could kill the child in this world, but it go to the next world. But by stopping them from being born, they don't even go to the next world. The reason the shamas come to this world was to perfect them to go back to the next, to get to the world to come, to get to olam haba. You're not allowing that. Paro Russia suffering miskayim xerachsav, suffering miskayemes. The suffix whether the gezerah will be fulfilled, it won't be fulfilled. And as we see, it wasn't. At tzaddik, but you're a tzaddik, and you're going to say that what? That you shouldn't get married? Everyone's going to listen to you. Shnemar, you say a decree, and it's going to happen. Amram accepted the musra of his daughter, and he took her back. And as we're going to see, she was already pregnant, guys. Yocheved was already pregnant 3 months with Moshe when the Amram took her back. In other words, she had been impregnated before the divorce, and he didn't know about it. And that's how we were able to hide Moshe for 6 months. Because the Mitzrayim, when they came back, from the time they came back, the Mitzrayim calculated 9 months. But they had 3 months to play with because she already was pregnant for 3 months. All fascinating stuff, really. Shmak as anything. Vayikach, it says Vayikach is pas Levi. Vayikach, it shouldn't be Vayikach, and he took Mashma Lekuchin. Vayachsami boile, and he returned and took her, it should say. So I'm Rabbi Yehuda Bar Zvina, Sha'asa loy Maisa Lekuchin. He went ahead and he took her like mamish, like the first time they were married. Like Shiva Apuria, and put her in a Apuria, and they had a seat that they would put the collars in. The Aaron and Miriam, Meragim L'Fanecha, Aaron and Miriam were dancing in front of her. Malachi Ashari Samru, Ema Banim Smecha, and the Malachi Ashari said, Ema Banim Smecha. Ema Banim Smecha is a happy mother with children. As Bas Levi, she went and took Bas Levi. Efshe Bas Meah V'Shleishim Shona Have B'Kor Le Bas. Is it possible she's 130 years old and you call the Bas? Pasha the Cheshma, guys. How long were we in Mitzrayim for? 210 years, right? We were there 210 years. Moshe, when he came in front of Paro, was 80 years old. So it must be that Yocheved mothered him when she was 130. It must be Yocheved mothered him when he was 130. So therefore, how can you call her a bas if she was 130 years old? Says the Gedoma Rabbi Chamar says Rabbi Chamar Rav Chanina. It says the pasuk Zu Yocheved, that this Zu Yocheved Shayrasa B'derech. In other words, there were 69 people. We went and they said the Shivni Neshamas came in Mitzrayim. It came down to 70 people. So they made a cheshbon 69. Who was the 70th? It was Yocheved Shayrasa B'derech, who was conceived on the derech. V'leidasa ben Chaymas, and she was born between when they came to Mitzrayim, she was born Shnemar Asher Yoldas Olalev Mitzrayim. So Mama, she was born B'Shas, coming down to Mitzrayim. 200. That was the beginning of the 210 years, and therefore you can ascertain she was what? If Moshe was 80, and it's 210 minus 80 is 130. So Idasam Mitzrayim, being a Rasa of Mitzrayim, she was conceived out of Mitzrayim, but her Rasa was a Mitzrayim. Okay. Now, so why was she called Bas Levi? And for the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda, she'll know the Bas Simani Nairis. Not only did she go ahead and give birth in 130, but it turned back to what? That her returning a Nairis, she was young again. Again, I spoke at yesterday. There's a lot of Pneumius HaTorah over here, connected with Moshe and Moshe Rabbeinu, Yocheved, and Adam and Chava. Again, the 130 is significant. We find that Adam was perished from Chava 130 years. Shes, who we all come from Shes, Cain was killed in the Mabel, all his descendants. Hevel never had descendants. We come from Shes, right? Or they say in the vernacular, Seth, right? We come from Seth. And he was born in the year 130. Why? Because Adam had gone ahead and he had separated for 130 years. There would have been a lot of children born. Says the Maharal that those children that were born, the ones that are giving birth now, Shishim B'Keres Echad. We saw that women were giving birth without midwives, without pain, without midwives, without pain. And the beautiful pshat the Maharal says is that Moshe was a Gilgal of Hevel. Moshe was a Gilgal of Hevel. The Ramban al Torah brings that the soid concerned Hevel is a very deep thing. The Gilgal HaNeshamis is learned out from Hevel. Moshe Rabbeinu was a Gilgal of Hevel. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu, when he saw the snare, was scared, because there was fire that caused the demise of Hevel. The fire coming down from Shemayim that accepted his korban caused the jealousy of Cain, whose korban was not accepted, and it caused Cain to be jealous and ultimately kill him. So Moshe innately had this fear of fire because of being that he was the Gilgal of Hevel. Now, if Moshe was the Gilgal of Hevel, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu was born before the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. Hevel was born before the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. And Moshe was a Gilgal, and Memela says the Maharal, the children born in Mitzrayim, in the schus of this fact, 130, none of the women suffered from the Chet of the Eitz Hadas. All the women were giving birth without pain, without anything. So there's a tremendous panemius over here, inner pshatim over here going on between Yocheved and Moshe and that Adam and Chava and the 130 years. It's beautiful Maharal. He puts it all together. Guys, we're good? Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, Vatari Yisha Vatele Ben, she gave birth to a son. Who having Me'abra bat be Tilsa Yarche Meikara. How can it's mashma that she got pregnant now when they were returned? But as I told you, she was already impregnated. She was pregnant already. So what do you mean Vatara Yisha Vatele Ben? Rav Yehuda Bar Zvina Makish Leidasa Rasa. You make a hekesh between her Leida giving birth and her pregnancy. Maha Rasa Shalei Bitsar, just like conception without tsar. Afle Dasa Shalei Bitsar. Mikan Nashim Tzidkania Shalei Hoyo the Piska Shel Chav. It's a very geshmak, guys, right? This is what I just told you. She gave birth without tsar, just as, and it says over here that Nashim Tzidkanias, they don't suffer from the klala of Chava, and this B'schus Nashim Tzidkanias Nigalu, they didn't suffer from the klala of Chava. I think the Ramban speaks out beautifully. And Pashas told us when you have that. Rivka's got this civil war going on in her stomach. They're fighting, Asa wants to go out, Yaakov wants to go out, and she didn't know what was going on over here. It was like she thought she had this psychotic or schizophrenic son. Like she thought it was one person, and he didn't know which way he was going. So where did she go? She went to Shem. Now, Yitzchak was the God Ladar. Why didn't she go to Yitzchak? Because of this Gemara, says the Ramban. She didn't want her husband to think less of her. Since the tsar of pregnancy and carrying the child, she didn't want her husband to think less of her. Because since Nashim Tzidkanios do not go ahead and suffer from the chet of Chava, of the Eitz Hadas, so why would she be suffering so? So she didn't go to her husband. That she was Nebuch. She didn't want her husband to think less of her. So she went to what? To Shem ben Noach. But it's the way this Gemara, according to Ramban, explains the difficult in you. She gave birth and she saw that he was Toiv. Tanya Rabbi Omer Toiv Shemai. That Moshe's initial name was Toiv. It's very interesting. Moshe had 10 names. And we call him the name that Bisya called him. We call him after the name of Bisya, he was named by Paro's daughter. It's very fascinating. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Tuvya Shmai. His name was Tuvya. Rabbi Chemia says, why was it called Toiv? Hagel and Avias, because he was prepared for Avias. The Arachaim on the Torah says that Arachaim Torah makes a comparison between Moshe and Shmuel. We saw yesterday HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and he stood and he said, Shmuel, Shmuel. And Shmuel ran to Eli because he didn't know he was being called by Hashem. When Moshe by the sneh says Moshe, he says Hineni. Moshe knew right away. Says the Orach Chaim. Moshe was a born Navi. In other words, Moshe, he was born for this job, and he innately knew when HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to him that it was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He answered right away, Hineni. So therefore, that's Pshat in the Pasuk over here, Hagen Lenevias, based upon the Orach Chaim al Chumash, that he was Hagen Lenevias. Acherim say Noiled Kshumal. He was born circumcised. Moshe was born the Smali Habayas Kula Or. The whole house was filled with Or, and Or is Toiv. She thought that it was Toiv. By my Sabracious on day one, by Yarlakim as Or Ki Toiv. So play on words, Toiv, that Toiv means Or. And she hid him for 3 months. The Mitzrayim started counting, as I told you, from the time that Amram came back. So 9 months from then. She had already been pregnant for 3 months from Moshe. So they had 3 months of leeway. Then it says, she couldn't hide him anymore. Amai, why not? Why don't she just continue hiding him? Ella, what do you have to say? When Mitzrayim heard that a baby was born, you know what they would do? So Mamtu Yenuka Hasan, they would bring an Egyptian baby over there. So that he would cry and they would hear each other. What babies? Once one baby cries, the other baby starts crying. You have that chain reaction. So that's how they would find out. And they would hear the baby crying and they'd find out. By Kriyas Yamsuf, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, go ahead, literally grab the foxes who are ruining the vineyard, means take the young foxes, take the young children who ruined the vineyard, who ruined the Klal Yisrael by crying, and that's why they were killed also because of what? Because they were used as a means of finding out where the Jewish children were being hidden. So therefore, she couldn't hide Moshe. It says Vatikalei Tevis Goimish. She took a basket made of wicker. Maishna Goimah. Why wicker? Why don't you take wood? It was less expensive, right? Because they don't go ahead and any money they have is they don't have to come on to Gezel. That's why Yaakov went back for the Pachim Ketanim by Pashas Vayishlach. Shmuel and Chmeni Omar is Dover Rach. It was a practical thing that this wicker is Rach. Therefore, Shiochel Lamoid b'fnei Dover Rach b'fnei Dover Kosher. Since it's soft, it can go ahead and it has a certain leeway. It would bang into something strong, it would bend a little bit. Bang into something soft, it won't be affected. Mashen came something wood, you could bang something hard, and something hard, it could break. It says, Vatachmra b'chema b'zefes. She smeared it with clay and with tar. Chema b'mifnim. She put the clay inside, the zefes b'chutz, and the tar on the outside, because the tar is smelly. He shouldn't smell the noxious odor of tar. She put him in the suf. Now I was always thinking, you think about the Nile and you think about a baby floating in water, you worry about drowning. I would be worried about Nile crocodiles. You think Nile crocodiles are from the most vicious creatures in the world. Really, and that. I think that Shmi's tremendous nest. She put him there in this river, and it was amazing. Right? Yam Suf. So this would answer the question. It wasn't in the Nile River, it was in the Yam Suf. Okay? So it wasn't in the Nile River. Right? Now it could be that the Yam Suf connects to the Nile. I don't know. This is very interesting, but this would answer my question, right? If you're in the Yam Suf, you don't have to worry about the Nile crocodiles, right? Anyway, Rabbi Shmuel ben Achmeni, however, Shmuel ben Achmeni says on the days, Agam, she put him in a marsh, right? That was called Suf. That was the name of it. She put him in a marsh that was called Suf. Kidchsiv, Kana v'Suf Kamelu. And so you see that these willows are called Suf. Materi Basparo Lirchetz Alayar. Basparo comes down to go to the river. So Omer Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon Bayochai Malamet Sheyarda Lirchetz Miglule Avia. She came down literally to go ahead and be toivel herself from the avodah zarah of her father. Guys, look at Rashi. Top Rashi, Lerchitz, Litful Shom L'Shem Geris. Bashi was coming down to Megayer. Bashi was coming down to Megayer. She was going to go ahead and go to the mikvah to get away from what the gilulim of a father. And Hashem will clean the filth of the b'nai tziyah. And she had a bunch of nairis with her, and holchos, they were going along. What is going along? We know Rabbi Yochanan, ein alicha zu elo lashon misa. This alicha, these girls were going to die. We'll see why in a second. By Esav. Esav says, and Parshas told us, why do I need my bechayra? I'm going to die anyway. So you see that one. You see holchos lashon avad of misa. Now, why were they going to die? She saw, came in the chazid kaboyas latzulei Moshe. Once the nairis, they saw that she was going to save Moshe. Amru la yivreitenu. They said, Geveret, Amishtis. Minhaga shaloyla melech basav adam goyz gezera. Mkalal mkulei mekayim Moshe. One of bnei beisay mekayim Moshe. If no one keeps it, at least the children will keep it. So you, the child, the daughter of Paros, will certainly keep it and not save a Jewish child. You're going against your father. So what happened? I guess she would be nervous that they may go spill the beans. So guess what happened? Well, Gavriel, the Chavtam de Karka, came along Gavriel and went and belted him and killed him right there on the spot. So and it said that they were going V'nairis Holchos, they were going Lemisa, they would taka dying. Why were they dying? Because again, they were going to stop her from saving Moshe, or at worst, telling Paro about what she did. Paro sent out her Amma. It doesn't say Yad, it says Amma, and grabbed the basket. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Nechemia, Chadama, Yada. One said it was her Yad, Chadama, Shivchasa. And one said what? It was her Shivcha. And one said it was her Shivcha. Mandama Yada, Dichsiv Amasa. One that says it was an arm, it says Amma. Guys, an Amma is from here to here. Guys, you can't say Amma. From here to here, that's an Amma. So it's an allusion to what? To an arm. Right? Umandama Shivchasa, Midaloi Ksiv Yada. When it doesn't say Yada, right? So where was there a not? Where was there a shivcha? Where was there a shivcha? The shayalacha, the one was left over. The lavurcha, the bas malka will make him lechuda. It's not good for bas malka to go alone. Now, l'chayra, guys, you're going to tell me, so why do you worry spilling the beans? I guess once this naira saw what happened to the other ones, that was a little mafioso action over here, right? It's going to stop. She's not telling anybody anything. As they say, my lips are sealed, right? You don't have to worry about anything over here. So one was kept alive for the covet of the Bas Malka, but you don't have to worry about telling anything what happened. It says the Gemara. Now it says Yada Lich. So when it says say Amasa Yad, so why do you use a funny lashon, guys, over here to here, right? If it means Yad, say Yad, that she sent out her hand. What do you mean that? It says Hakamash says Yada Lichtav Yada. It says Hakamash Malan. What happened was she stuck out her hand, and the nest miraculously, her hand extended an amma. The amma you find I think by Achashverosh, he stuck it out, right? And the nest happened that she was able to get it. The same thing over here, that you stuck it out and you're able to get it. The teeth of the Rishayim are broken. V'amrei Shlokish, Atigre Shibarta, don't they Shibarta, Ella Shiravta, that they became longer. There's a Maisa in Og. Og picked up the mountain. He was going to throw it on the Klal Yisrael. And ants came and they ate through the mountain and it fell on his head. And he was going to take it off, but his teeth grew out and it stopped him from being able to take it off. And that's where it says over here, Shivarta. He said that. So I still remember, I asked my kid, my Yona's son was a smart kid. I asked him, why would Bas Paro, if she couldn't reach you, why would she reach out? In other words, when you go ahead and do something, you're playing basketball, you reach to the rim. You don't know you can't touch the rim. You know you can't. So why would you reach out to go ahead to touch a basket that you couldn't? So Yonason told me, I still remember as a kid, he goes, sometimes you have to try to do something and Hashem helps.
Doesn't Chaim Shmulevitz have a saying on that the person, he like it mirrors what you just said, what your son said.
So
That when you stretch your hand out.
Well, that's why I said it became my son because he didn't see Rav Chaim.
Yeah, I saw that.
And because my share was, I wanted to bring a personal touch to my share. That's why I did it, Harold.
But I said b'shem.
I knew Rav Chaim. I knew Rav Chaim also, Harold.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to.
Harold, I know what you wanted to do.
I wanted to legitimize.
And Harold, if you're going to stay much longer, I'm going to let Benji. I'm going to unmute Benji, and you'll be in trouble. If he's too busy, you're lucky he's eating right now in the middle.
Benji's eating.
Yeah. Good Brooks.
I don't have any roles, Steve, here, but I'm eating what I can.
We have Uber Eats. We can deliver.
Uber Eats. Okay. Anyway, so fast again. It's so fascinating that all this is taking place during Pesach. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And these are from the most famous Gemaras. You know why? Because you all know them from Chumash. You all know this from Rashi's and Chumash. You know, they all seem familiar. You all know this stuff from Rashi and Chumash. It's really, really geschmack. Anyway, Vatiftach v'tirei as a yeled. It said she opened up and she saw him, the yeled. So it's redundant. But she saw him, and then it says as a yeled. It should say Vatera mi borle, Vatera es hayeled. What do you mean Vatera? Who? So Amar Rabbi Yosef Chanina, right? Yisharasa Shchinima. She saw the Shchina was with him. She saw the Shchina. I just had a very interesting deher. Just had a very interesting, I don't know if it's true. I'm just mentioning it. I actually not even tape it. But why do we call him? Why do we? Bisya named him Kimimayim Mishisihu. She had just undergone a Gerus, right? She was Megaya. She was going the river to Megaya. And we find out very often women name the child. We find out in Chazal, Leah named the children, right? Leah named the children. So it could be in her schus of saving Moshe. And the fact that she's Megaya, it's like whatever name he had beforehand, but now she's really getting that name. Perhaps. Anyway.
Has she? Did Rav Chaim Levitt say that?
So if you just keep eating those rolls.
Where else do you get comic relief like this?
No, listen, hey, it's good. Pirate should be learned with happiness and simcha. So it's Baruch Hashem. It's gewaldig. It's very nice. As long as it doesn't get nasty. And it says the Gemara. Anyway, so what does it mean? She saw him. Who did she see? Rabbi Yosef Chanina, she saw the Shechina with him. It says V'hine nar boiche, and he was crying. Now nar usually refers to a young lad. Karile yeled, you call him a yeled, which means a baby. V'karile nar. So Tana who yeled v'karile nar. He was a baby, but his voice was like that of a young man. You have Rabbi Yehuda. Amalei Rabbi Nechemia, the Bar Pluk to Rabbi Yehuda. And Cain, if you're telling me that he had such a voice. Asisa Moshe Rabbeinu Balmum. Moshe was a Levi, would be a Balmum. He won't be able to sing. Yochebed was worried she would never see him marry, so she made the teva like a little chuppah, like a little chuppah. Amra shemalei eskel chupasai. In fact, she wasn't, because he got married in Midian and she never saw him married. If there's a tachmal love, it says that Bishya took Rachmanis on him. But Toimer miyaldei ivrim zeh. This one is miyaldei ivrim. Yoda. She saw that it was mahol. It's very geshmak. You ask the question, who else would she think it was? Who else would it be hiding their kid? And the answer is, the answer. We began the daf, guys. The Gezerah was on the Mitzrayim also. The Gezerah, Parah made the Gezerah on the Mitzrayim also. So the Mitzrayim woman also possibly could want to save their child, right? You're not limited to it. It's an answer like, somebody asked me this question a while ago, like, well, who would you think it is? Who would you think it is? And I said, obviously the Gezerah was what on Mitzrayim also. Ken Zion that what it was a Mitzrayim kid. So therefore, how did you know that it was a Jewish kid? How did you know it was a Jewish kid, since the Gezerah was what on the Mitzrayim as well? Shiras Samoyel, because he was Gamalit. Zeh, this one, Rabbi Yochanan, what's the lashon zeh? Melamed shenisnave shaloi midaita. That she went ahead and she said nevuah without realizing it. Zeh neifel vein acher neifel. This one, what? This one was in the river, but in the future, others won't be. As we're going to see in a second, fellas, when Moshe was in the river, right, the astrologist told Paro, that's it. You don't have to worry anymore. He's drowned. They felt that Moshe was in the river, he was drowned. So therefore, this is the last one that the Gezerah would be Chalon. After that, you wouldn't have to worry. And that's Pshat over here. Zed Neufel, this one will fall. Ve'inach Neufel. Behind the Dom Rabbi Elazar, it says, Dirshu Ela Avos, you should go to the Avos people who call up the dead, Yidoinim, people who use a bone of the Yedoah to tell the future. Amitzafzufim v'hamagim, people who they chirp, v'hamagim, Soifim ve'ina yoidim at Soifim, they speak, they don't know what they're talking about. Mahagim ve'ina yoidim at Mahagim, they don't know what they're saying. So she didn't know what she was saying. That this one was what, and not others. Now here's the explanation. Rosh Hashanah sheYisrael b'mayim hu loiker. The astrologers of Paro, the stargazers of Paro, they saw that the Moshe of Yisrael is going to be what? He's going to be stricken by water. You know, Moshe's downfall was the Memoriva when he hit the rock instead, right? Amu v'gazru, he said, Kol ad ben hayilud hayor tishlechu, throw him into the river, because that's the raya that is going to be stricken by water. Came in the shadula Moshe, once Moshe was thrown into the river, albeit in a basket. Amru, so what did the stargazers say? Sulei chazinon kiosimana, we don't see the simon anymore. In other words, he must have drowned. So bitlu l'gzerasayu, therefore, what happened? Paro was bottled the gezerah. The Haman and Yoidim, but they didn't realize that the stargazers shall Memoriva who like him. Moshe wasn't like it by this. Moshe was like by the Memoriva later on in the future. Behind the Rav Chama bar Chanina, Maidich Siv, Hema Memoriva Asher Ravu. These are the Memoriva that Asher Ravu. Hema Shero Atznidas Paroi, that the astrologers of Paro saw. Hema, these are the ones that they had seen so many years before and made a mistake. Behind the coming Moshe, right? Sheish Meis Elef Ragli. Moshe says 600,000 people. Ragli Bishvili. Amalahen Moshe Yisrael Bishvili needs saltem kulchem. You're saved because of me. Because as a result of me, they stopped the Gezerah, and that caused you all to be born. Fascinating Gemara. Fascinating Gemara. Okay. Now the Gemara said Zeh. What day was it? What day was it? Moshe was in the river. It was the 20 Esrim ve'echad b'Nisan Hayo. It was the 21st day of Nisan. Amru Malchei Ashar Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Malachim said, "Rebbeinu Shloim, Misha Asid Loima Shira Al Hayom." The Shira took place on 21, guys. Right? Yilka b'Yom Zeh. He should be on the 21. Should be what? Should be Gestrofen. So you should save him. That day that he was in the river was the 6th of Sivan. Amru Malchei Ashar Lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rebbeinu Shloim, Misha Asa l'Kabel Torah me'Asinai b'Yom Zeh, the Kabel Torah on Vav Sivan, right? Yilka b'Yom Zeh, fascinating. So in other words, 21 days is what is Shira, and that's the 21, and the Vav Sivan is Matan Torah. So which day was Moshe put in the river? Was Moshe put in the river on the 21 of Nisan or Vav Sivan? Now remember, we can figure this out using the fact that she was pregnant, Yocheved was pregnant 3 months, right? So Moshe was hidden for 3 months. So therefore, he was born in Zayin Adar, guys. So it says the Gemara, you have 3 months from the time Moshe was born until what? Until, right? You have Nisan the year 7. You have 3 months. So the Amamar, B'Shiva Ba'adam Mais, B'Shiva Ba'adam Noilad, Moshe. From the 7th day in Adar, Shisha B'Sivin is till Siyarche, exactly 3 months. Moshe was born Zayin Adar. How do you get 3 months from Zayin Adar to? So here we're going to come on to Roiv, guys. Roiv of he was born Zayin Adar, so we'll count Roiv of Adar as 1. We'll count the complete Nisan, right? We'll count complete Nisan. Where he's no. Adar, it was a leap year, guys. So Moshe was born the 1st Adar. You have the 2nd Adar, it's the 2nd month, and 21 days in Nisan, you have Roiv of Nisan. So those are your 3 months. Again, Zayin Adar, the 1st Adar. 2nd Adar was a leap year, right? And Zayin Adar, you have Roiv of the month left over. You have 23 days left over. And then you have 21 days passing in Nisan is Roiv of Nisan. So it's 3 months, but not okay. Says the Gemara. Isa Shana Muberes. There was a leap year that month. Ruba Shal Rishoin. You had Roiv of Adar Rishoin, Roiv Shal Achroin, and you had Roiv of Nisan. The Emtza Sholem, and you had a full Adar in between. So therefore, you have approximately 3 months. It said V'toima Choisel El Bas Paroi. Right, and she again. What happened was they tried Moshe to nurse, and he refused to nurse. So I go get someone from you. Isha minekes min avriyos, a woman from a Jewish nursemaid. Why you avriyos? Why couldn't you get Egyptian? He refused to go ahead and nurse for many of them. Because Baruch Hu said, the pair that's going to speak to the Shrina, should nurse from a woman who eats davatame. Right? Who knows Yeridea? Me Yeridea. Who do teach knowledge to? The Gemule Mechalav. Those who are weaned from Chalav. Those people who remove themselves from the breast of people who don't eat kosher. I still remember when I was sitting Shiva, someone told me an unbelievable thing, the idea of a Kaddish. I was sitting Shiva and he told me that a Maisa, I heard it from Rabbi Yosef, Zechat Tzadik Kodesh L'Bracha, the Chida, the Maisa with the Maisa happened like this, that a woman showed up to the Chida. She was an old woman, and she said, when you were born, and she requested that she has no children, that the Chidah should say Kaddish for her. And she told him the following, that she wasn't a religious woman, she was Jewish. But her mother, the Chidah's mother, was unable to nurse the Chidah and hired this woman. And she told the Chidah that even though she wasn't a religious woman, she was makbid, that before she nursed him, she never ate a davatame. She never ate a davatame, ever. And therefore the milk was kosher. And she passed away in the Chidah. He had agreed to say Kaddish and began to say Kaddish. He goes, 3 months in, she appeared to the Chidah in a dream and said, stop. He said, what's Pshat? He goes, you have no idea what your Kaddish does in Shemayim every time you say it. And he goes, every time you say it, I get higher and higher. Because right now I'm comfortable with the people I'm with. I don't have to go higher than this. So again, I always think about that, right? Okay, says the Gemara. So she goes, and she because Moshe refused to nurse, but Toimelo Bas Paroi, but it says Vatelecha Alma. Alma literally means a young girl. She ran like a mamish, like a young girl. Alma, what does Alma mean? She hid her words. She hid the fact that she was the sister, and the fact that he was going to go ahead and get the mother. But Toimelo Bas Paroi, Helichi Esayel Rezeh. Lashon Helichi, Amar of Chama Rav Chanina, Misnava. Paro's daughter Bisya had nevuah. Beni Yudas Ma'am Misnava, because she didn't know. Hayilchi, we tais is her shalichi. Her here is shalichi. That's yours. In other words, she was saying, take that one to. She said to Yocheved, her shlichi, take that. That's yours. You know, she didn't know what she was doing. Bani etines scharech. I'll give you what I'll pay you. It's not enough that they go ahead and they return the Aveda. They even go ahead and they reward them for it. Let's conclude the Gemara. Vatikach Miriam Hanavia Aches Aaron. It says, but after Kriyas Yamsuf, Miriam took the tambourine in her hand. Aches, why is it Aches Aaron of Leaches Moshe? She was so Amram B'Imila Amrav Nachman Amarav Malamish Shohaisim Misnava Kashia Aches Aaron. She had a nevuah when she was the wife, the sister of Aaron before Moshe was born. Amen Aleph by Meris, and she said, "I the imi sheteled ben shemashir Yisrael. In the future, my mother will go ahead and give birth to a child that will be Mashir Yisrael." We came into the Moshe and Ismaili Kolabayas Kulas. Or we saw the whole house lit up. Amid Aviv Nishkal Roisha. Aaron stood up and kissed Miriam on the head. Amal Abiti Mistrayemis Nevasayach. Your nevuah was fulfilled. Or once he was thrown in the river, Amar Aviv Tavchal Reisha, Amram gave her a little clap on the head. Amala beat the Hechin Nevasayach. Where's the nevuah? Behind the Chsiv, Vatesev Achoyse Meirachak. The diet Leda. My Yasaloi, what's going to be Leda? Why doesn't not to know what? My year besaved Nevuah. So what's going to be in the Nevuah? Will it be fulfilled or not? And when he was saved, obviously what? It was fulfilled. Okay, everyone have a great Moed. We'll see you later this evening.